Studios, KHTK AM and HD1 Sacramento, KYMX HD2 Sacramento. We are the home for the Kings, Raiders, the NFL, and the A's. It's Sactown Sports 1140. Sactown Sports Headlines.
This is your Sactown Sports 1140 headlines, and I am Double J Johnson. We begin in the association as the league has suspended and fined Phoenix Suns and Mercury owner Robert Sarver for 1 year and $10 million after an investigation into the Suns franchise. The league announced that they found 5 different occasions where Sarver used the N-word, found that Sarver made sexual and inappropriate related comments toward female employees, sustained inappropriate physical conduct towards male employees, engaged in harsh treatment of his employees, citing Sarver engaged in the demeaning of employees, as well as yelled and cursed at them. The suspension goes into effect immediately. We jump over to the NFL where the Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott, who broke his right thumb in a loss to the Buccaneers, had surgery on his hand yesterday. And according to Jerry Jones, he will not be placed on the injured reserve list. Instead, the team will take it week to week with hopes Prescott can return to action in about a month. Keeping it closer to the home, the 49ers are reportedly signing former Texans running back Marlon Mack to the practice squad, while the Chargers don't expect wide receiver Keenan Allen to play Thursday night against the Chiefs, citing an hamstring injury he sustained in Sunday's game versus the Raiders. The Green and Gold follows the Cattles and Ramie show at the A's take on the Texas Rangers live from Globe Life Field. Keep it locked right here to Sactown Sports 1140 for all the action coming up at 4 p.m. Now let's get to the Cattles and Ramie show.
It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Cattles and Ramie.
I describe him as the best, obviously.
It's Cattles.
He throws it out there. Speaks his mind. That's cool.
It's Ramie.
He's supposed to make people laugh. He's just an expert at it.
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
What's happening? Good Tuesday to all of you. Thanks for joining us. As always, it is much appreciated. We have a lot to get to with little time, so let's jump right in, Ramie.
Let's.
The NFC West, first weekend of the season, combined 1-3. And watching the game last night between the Broncos and the Seahawks, one might question whether or not Seattle could be a bigger threat to San Francisco than we first thought. We'll get to that a little bit later. But first, I thought Russell Wilson and his return to Seattle was going to be the bigger story from the game last night. Little did we know Nathaniel Hackett was going to have a brain fart of epic proportions. I mean, oh my goodness. You've got just about a minute left in this game. You have 3 timeouts. They're staring at a 4th and 5. And all of a sudden, they just let the clock tick, tick, tick. And you're thinking, call a timeout. What's happening? Why are you not calling a timeout? Well, Hackett lets the play clock go down to 1. Calls a timeout, and then all of us realize, we all have the epiphany, wait a minute, they're going to try to kick a 64-yard field goal.
I'm not, patting myself on the back, but as soon as I saw him letting the clock run down, I was like, oh, they're kicking this. It didn't make any sense. Well, not much sense, but I was like, oh, they're kicking. There's no other reason you let the clock just run down like that. I was like, oh, my God, they're kicking this.
I give you credit for thinking at the very bottom level that Hackett was thinking. Because I'm going, Russell Wilson, 4th and 5. You need 5 yards for a first down. What are we doing?
That was the most chaos that Ramie wanted.
I couldn't hear it. I was at a bar getting ready to do an open mic, and they had it on the TV, but the volume was down, so I couldn't hear what the announcers were saying. But I just saw the clock running down, and I was just like, oh, they're kicking it.
Maybe you would have felt different if you were watching the game, because I believe Joe Buck and Troy
with
Aikman.
The sound on.
By the way, yeah. Aikman, Buck, completely different experience. Monday Night Football is so much better with those two guys.
Big. They make it feel big.
But for a good minute and a half, at least, leading up to that decision by Hackett, Buck and Aikman kept telling everybody, this is, the career long of McManus. This is what they're looking at. And Hackett said, I don't care what his career long is. We're going longer, baby. And if you were watching the Manning cast, they had Shannon Sharp on. And listen to Peyton, Eli, and Sharp. They're all confused by what was going on.
A lot of time wasted right there to call timeout, Pate.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, if you get 5 yards, you still got 2 timeouts, but you got to get some yardage.
They're going to kick it. They're going to kick it. Kick what?
They're kicking right here.
Kicking the field goal right here.
Hold on.
Oh.
Hold on. See how far this is.
62-yarder. 63-yarder.
What?
The incredulousness of Shannon Sharp. Kick what? What? Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're kicking what? You're doing. And if you watch the video of this, if you watch the video of this, while Shannon's yelling about kicking the football, you've got Peyton on the little head window above him, feverishly, like for 30
for
seconds.
The timeout. He's doing the timeout sign.
He's like slamming his hand. Timeout.
Almost broke a finger.
Hackett is a rookie head coach, and I thought he looked like a rookie last night. Here was Hackett in the postgame trying to explain his decision-making.
Yeah, we were right on the line, and he had plenty of distance. You know, he just missed it. And so, and again, Brandon gave it his best shot. I mean, that's a long field goal to hit. I think he's completely capable of that. But obviously, I wish we would have gotten a lot closer. But it put us in that weird spot there because we were in the field goal range, but we were on that fourth down situation. Didn't think we were going to get that many yards. So I thought it was a great job by Javonte, and we just made the decision. We want to take our shot there on that one.
So that's Hackett. Russell Wilson, he had his say in the postgame.
Yeah, we said you know, where can you make it from tonight? And he said 46 left hash. I think we were on the 46, right? 46 left hash. That was before the drive, and we got it there. Unfortunately, it didn't go in. I think he has a leg for it for sure. You know, just went a little left, I believe, and just you know, in terms of, I believe in Coach Hack. I believe in what we were doing. You know, and believe in everything, and you know, anytime you can try to find a way to make a play on 4th and 5, that's great too. But also, I don't think it was the wrong decision. You know, I think he can make it. Obviously, hindsight, you know, we didn't make it. But if we were in that situation again, I wouldn't doubt whatever he decided.
Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Listen, if I have to make a decision between a kicker making a career-long 64-yard field goal on the road with a crazy crowd who was super loud all night long, and my $161 million guaranteed QB1 franchise quarterback in Russell Wilson, I ride or die with $161 million guaranteed. I trust Wilson getting 5 or more yards more than I trust that kicker. Even though he's had a pretty good career, I trust him more than that kicker making a 64-yarder.
But Hackett walked it back today a little bit, didn't he? Okay, yeah, he owned it today.
Well, did he? Did he truly
I haven't
walk
heard
it back?
I haven't heard it. I haven't heard it.
Let's hear whether or not he truly walks it back.
You know, looking back at it, we definitely should have gone for it. Just not, you know, one of those things you look back at it and you say, of course we should go for it. We missed the field goal. But in that situation, we had a plan. I mean, we had a plan. We knew that the 46 was the mark. We were 3rd and 15, I think, 3rd and 13. I'm more upset about that play before it, to lose yards, to be able to, you know, getting that there would have definitely been better to be able to call that same play and get extra yards. But he dumps it out to Javonte. Javonte makes a move, goes a lot farther than I think we had anticipated. We were expecting to go for it on 4th down. And then you hit the mark. You know, the mark that we had all set before we started. We said 46 yards. 46-yard line was where we wanted to be. And we got there. So we had to make the decision if we wanted to give it to, you know, Brandon.
Yeah,
and we
did. A lot of explaining, bro.
It didn't work. Sucks. But, hey, that's part of it.
Lots of explaining. To me, that is not regretting the decision. That's regretting the dude missed the kick.
He should have just stopped with, in hindsight, probably should have gone for it. But here's the thing, and everybody is being real hard on Hackett today. But, dude, you mentioned Russell Wilson just got $250 million, and he wouldn't be the first quarterback who, after the play is over, to jump up and do what Peyton Manning was doing, which is signal for the tight end, make an executive decision right there, or at the very least, be hollering at your coach, no, let's go for it. Let's go for it. Like that wouldn't have been out of line for him to do, and he's the Super Bowl champion quarterback. He's the guy that just got the $250 million contract, and everybody's jumping down the throat of the first-time head coach. Russell Wilson doesn't have to follow him. He can, like I said, make an executive decision and stop the clock right there himself.
Diana,
or have his voice heard.
Diana Rossini just tweeted, what's funny is I had some conversations with football people in the league today about Hackett's decision, and nobody was crushing him. Some even said they know why he made the call. I have 2 questions. Who are these football people, and how do they still have jobs?
I think I'm one of them. It's McManus's fault.
McManus's fault.
He should have said 45-yard line is the furthest he could go.
And of course, the other part of this story last night, which I thought was going to be the biggest part of the story, was Russell Wilson's return to Seattle. And them Seahawks fans weren't too happy to see him. Woo! Now, this is a guy, I remind you, who won Seattle's only Super Bowl in its team's history, made 9 playoff appearances, was the fastest quarterback to 100 wins. Now, it's not all because of him, Legion of Boom and stuff, but I was not surprised. I said it before the end of the show yesterday. I expected this crowd to boo him, so I wasn't surprised. I just think fans, 98% of the time, they root for the laundry, Ramie. They got season tickets, they follow the team, and that's what they care about. Once you're gone, once you're off that team, it's moving forward with the next guy.
But that was your dude. You know, he did things as a quarterback for that organization that no quarterback has ever done before and was there for a decade. Like, that was your dude, man. You couldn't give him a warm... He wouldn't be the first to get a warm welcome, and he didn't leave. He was traded. And as he said, they tried to trade him before that. Like, I don't understand what Seahawks... Now, Russell Wilson's corny. He's very corny. I'm not a big fan of Russell Wilson, but I don't know what Seahawks... If I was a Seahawks fan, if any quarterback did for my organization what Russell Wilson did for that organization, I don't care how corny they are or even how it ended, really. When they come back, I'm going to cheer that person. I'm going to give them a warm reception. I thought that was kind of classless by the 12s in Seattle.
I'm not saying it wasn't classless. I'm just saying that I wasn't surprised. Like, I just think most fans
at this point.
Okay. Most fans believe in their team, right? That most fans, they root for their team. And no matter how great the individual player was, a lot of times, you know, they're going to cheer their team. They're going to boo the guy that's on the other team. And, you know, when he comes back for like the Ring of Fame or whatever they have in Seattle, I'm sure he'll get cheered and people will love him. I also think the stories that were leaked did not do him any favors, right? Like, they framed him as a selfish guy. Mm-hmm. They framed him that it was all about me. And it certainly sounded like Pete Carroll used that to his advantage last night and got the most out of his team. But really, Ramie, the question is, after watching last night's game, do we think the Seahawks might be a little bit tougher for the Niners to get past in that West than we might have thought before last night? We'll get to that. And we also, in 90 seconds, have to get to a report over the weekend that had me concerned about Trey Lance.
Check out the Golf to Go Hour with Frank LaRosa every week on Sactown Sport. It's the new spot for local sports talk in the afternoon. Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Time to I'll start that over again. I'll be all right. Time to see the return of Pro Rodeo. There it is, to Marysville next Saturday and Sunday, September 17th and 18th. For ticket info, go to MarysvilleStampede.com. After last night's game, easy for me to say. After last night's game, Ramie, and by the way, we'll be joined by NFL insider from The Athletic, Jeff Howe, in about 15 minutes. After last night's game, do you think Niners fans and the Niners should be more concerned about Seattle's ability to compete than maybe we thought before the season kicked off?
Nah, I don't think so. There was a lot of emotion fueling that game last night. They wanted to beat Russell Wilson. That Seattle team wanted to beat Russell Wilson and wanted it badly. I mean, that was a physical football game. And our friend Rob Stats Guerrera pointed this out. He'll join the show. Is it Wednesdays? Do I have that right? He had a great first half. Geno Smith had a great first half. He went 6 of 10 for 31 yards and a fumble in the second half. And I should apologize. I forgot.
How dare you besmirch the fine name of Geno Smith?
I forgot he was in the league. Okay, I should have known he was in the league, and he had a night that reminded me he was in the league. But everybody chill out on Geno Smith and the Seahawks. No, I still don't think they're anything to worry about.
You can pump that back a little bit.
Exactly.
I agree with you.
Right.
Look, let's wait and see as people see what this offense is doing with Geno Smith. You mentioned it. The second half, he was not very good. Jamal Adams got hurt. Sounds like he's done for the season. Very serious injury. He's an integral part to their secondary. I would not be concerned about the Seahawks if I were the Niners. Speaking of the Niners, a little tidbit here before we get to this story that jumped out at me over the weekend and did make me a little concerned about Trey Lance. The Niners today signed Marlon Mack to their practice squad. Of course, as we know, Elijah Mitchell will be out up to 2 months with that sprained MCL. Mack is now there. And, it's a good signing for guys that were available. I don't know if you can expect Mack to just walk in and be somebody really good and productive within the first, month and a half. And it's going to be fascinating to follow this story, the running back room, because I tweeted earlier today at Nick C Radio, if you were hoping or expecting to run the football and kind of slowly develop Trey Lance, if you can't get that run game going, you all of a sudden have to quickly develop Trey Lance.
Why is this team perpetually looking for running backs?
Just always getting hurt or swinging and missing.
Always looking for running backs, man. It's wild. I've never seen anything like it. And for a guy and for an organization that likes to run the football more than most teams do in the modern game, you would think that's a position that they would get settled. And you're right, some of it is bad luck with injuries, but 2 years in a row, third-round picks, and neither was on that field. One wasn't even on the roster for you on Sunday. It's wild how hard it is for the 49ers to lock something in at the running back position.
And I think that's the biggest issue. When you look at the running back situation, it's not just bad luck with injuries, because I think a lot of Niners fans would throw that out there. I mentioned this yesterday. You just mentioned it. You spent 2 third-round picks on that position over the last 2 years, and neither guy right now seems, like they're going to help. Obviously, Sermon is definitely not going to help. He's gone already to Philadelphia, and you're kind of just left scrambling, which is not what you want. Aside from all of this, Ramie, we talked about it last week, and you brought this up, the breadcrumbs that have kind of been left about Trey Lance, and maybe he's not quite ready to be the guy. Well, over the weekend, there might have been the biggest breadcrumb to me when we look at Lance and whether or not he's ready. Jay Glazer at Fox said something over the weekend that did leave me concerned about Lance's readiness and where this team is kind of mentally behind the scenes. Here was Glazer.
The day that they got Jimmy Garoppolo to restructure and coming back as their backup, their head coach, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, gathered 15 team captains. They said, guys, we need your support here. We got to make sure that you get Trey's back because there's going to be some bumpy roads ahead. We got to make sure with every incompletion, every interception, that people aren't clamoring to move on to Jimmy. We've got to make sure we have your support. Do we have it? All 15. Didn't hesitate. We got his back.
This a big deal?
I don't know. I mean, I'm stuttering and I'm stalling because it again leads me to believe that it could be a big deal. And the thing that gets me, Nick, is that it really bothers me when teams poorly handle a situation and give people out there every reason to speculate and doubt or believe that there is doubt within the organization.
Yep.
And then go, nothing to see here. It's the media. If you didn't think there was any chance that Jimmy Garoppolo coming back could cause some problems in that locker room, you don't feel a need to have that meeting.
This is the worst crumb yet to me. And I'll tell you why. First of all, just the very idea of this leak, even if it's partially true, not true, all true, the leak undermines the objective. The team's objective here is to make sure that Lance knows he's supported. I don't think that Shanahan and Lynch let Lance know that this conversation happened because it just destroys the idea of the meeting, because then Lance would say, what, you don't believe in me? You don't think I can, deal with this kind of thing? You're going to these guys and making sure that they babysit me and they make me feel like I'm welcomed and I'm coddled? Do I need to be caught? So the leak itself undermines the very objective that you had going to these players. Who leaked it? Was it one of the 15 leaders? Because if so, you got a big problem. I can't imagine Shanahan would leak this. I don't think Lynch would leak it. I don't think Jimmy G would leak it because I don't think Jimmy G knew. So whoever was in that room at the time would have to leak this. That's a big deal because that's one of the guys that you trust. It's one of the guys that you believe in if you're this organization. And yes, I am concerned with fragility because, as you just mentioned, you would not have this meeting with the leaders of the team if there wasn't a reason to have it. You have to believe, whether it's a big belief or just a tiny concern, there has to be a part of you, if you're Shanahan and Lynch, that is thinking when you bring back Jimmy G into this locker room, there has to be at least a slice of you thinking, Lance might not handle this well. So let's get to the leaders.
And if anything, this just proves that when they try and say, nah, nothing to see here, it's just the media and it's just reckless, wild speculation and clickbait, it ain't that, man, because they in their own building at least see an opening for problems by bringing Jimmy G back, or they don't feel the need to have that meeting.
Yep. They had to call this meeting for a reason. You don't call this meeting because there's the possibility that you kind of mess things up even worse, right? I mean, there's the possibility that not all 15 leaders would say, yes, we're behind this, we're good. What happens if a couple of the guys in the room are like, listen, let's just let them play football? Then you've got another issue on your hands. I think this is a huge challenge to keep it together. And we're going to see if Shanahan and Lynch can do it. We already saw after week one, we've got people. There are people already out there in the ether, the national scene. We're not talking about locally as much, but there are already people talking about Jimmy G and wondering if Garoppolo should take over. We're 1 week into this thing.
It was the first half, and they gave you the obligatory Jimmy G on the sideline shot as Trey Lance was running off the field after a failed drive. The director was like, show me Jimmy G in the first half.
We got Jimmy G on. Get Jimmy G on. Camera five, Jimmy G.
There's going to be a Jimmy G camera by week 4 if Trey Lance doesn't have himself a couple of good games.
They're going to go picture in picture. There will be Jimmy G in the corner.
There will be a Jimmy G cam by week 4. Watch.
It's a huge challenge. Shanahan has to keep this group together. He's got to make sure that Lance is optimistic and confident. He's got to make sure that they have a game plan that can help support the young quarterback, even if their running back room, is already in shambles. This is going to be a challenge for Shanahan. And listen, he has passed plenty of tests and challenges during his time with San Francisco. He is more than capable of making this work. All I'm saying is, it's a pretty big challenge. NFL insider Jeff Howe joins us to talk 49ers and big NFL headlines coming up next.
Cattles and Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Sacramento weather is brought to you by Quick
49ers, as they are reportedly signing former Texans running back Marlon Mack to the practice squad after an injury to Elijah Mitchell has left the running back room a bit shorthanded. According to Josina Anderson, cornerback Nickel Roby Coleman will be signing to the Raiders today to add another player to the cornerback room. As far as Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, Dak broke his right thumb in a loss to the Buccaneers this past weekend. He has had surgery on his hand yesterday. According to Jerry Jones, they will not be placing Dak Prescott on the injured reserve list. Instead, the team will take it week to week with hopes Prescott can return to action in about a month. In the NBA, the league has suspended and fined Phoenix Suns and Mercury owner Robert Sarver 1 year and $10 million after an investigation to the Suns franchise. The league announced that they found 5 different occasions where Sarver used the N-word. They also found that Sarver made sexual and inappropriate related comments toward both male and female employees. The Green and Gold follow the Cattles and Ramie show as the A's take on the Texas Rangers live from Austin. Keep it locked right here to Sactown Sports 1140 for all the action coming up immediately after the show at 4 p.m. Coming up in a matter of seconds, our insider, Jeff Howe of The Athletic. Now back to the Cattles and Ramie show.
It's time to go around the league with the Athletics NFL insider, Jeff Howe.
All right, so usually we do this on Tuesdays at 4:13, but the A's are kicking us off the air today. So we asked Jeff if he could help us out and join us a little bit earlier than usual, and he obliged. So we thank Jeff Howe of The Athletic for joining us right now. Again, he'll join us each and every Tuesday, usually at about 4:15. Jeff, your thoughts on Nathaniel Hackett's decision last night, and how do you think people in the game are reacting to it?
That was a rough one, and one I'm sure, as he's basically already said, he'd like to have back. I mean, I understand kind of making that decision before the drive starts, like what yard line you want to get to, what yard line your kicker's comfortable from getting at, and trying to remain as present and in the moment and objective and taking the emotion out of it as much as possible. But, you know, you kind of have to see how things are going to evolve over the course of the drive. And, you know, McManus has a big leg. Of course, he's got the distance from there, but he's like 2 of 10, I think it was, in his career from 58 plus. He hasn't made a kick since 2016 outside of Denver or a dome from at least 55. So even though you have the leg, even though it might have felt good in warm-ups, you got to look at some of these other numbers and realize that Russell Wilson's probably got a better chance of getting you 5 yards with 3 timeouts to continue that drive than McManus has of making a 64-yarder.
And I know the chain of command, head coach supersedes quarterback, but can't Russell Wilson there call the timeout or, holler to the sideline, no, let's go for it? We've seen franchise quarterbacks do that in the past. He wouldn't be out of line and would be far from the first to do either one of those things.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but that's a tough situation for a quarterback to be in, especially, with a new team, a new coach, and you don't have maybe a ton of history. I know those two guys have gotten off to a really good start together. And I would assume if Russell Wilson did call timeout right off the jump there, rather than letting the play clock bleed all the way down, and he went over to Hackett and he said, hey, let's go for it. I have to think, given Hackett's aggressive nature, that he probably would have obliged.
Jeff Howe is with us here from The Athletic, Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports. Jeff, Jay Glazer had a report over the weekend that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan went to the leaders of the Niners to make sure they had the back of Trey Lance when the decision was made to keep Garoppolo in town. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to a lot of people in San Francisco, but how much do you believe that team believes in Lance right now?
I think there's quite a bit of belief, and this storyline, man, it's tough for you guys out there because it feels like everything that happens is really under a microscope. And the start wasn't ideal. You certainly can't be giving away games to the Bears, who are at the very beginning of a rebuild. But it's like, I don't want to have a referendum on Trey Lance's career that one game in a monsoon that he didn't play well in against a good defensive-minded coach is all of a sudden like, okay, well, that's it. He's clearly not going to, this isn't going to be the guy.
Right.
So it's tough. I mean, I still think, he I don't know, benefit of the doubt is the right word, but this goes well beyond just, let's say, a month of training camp practices or, the decision to trade up in the draft. It's not like you got to believe in your evaluation of the player pre-draft, what you've seen since he's shown up a year plus ago, and everything else that's gone onto the field. You're going to weigh that a whole lot more than one game in a driving rainstorm.
We saw the report that they gathered 15 of the leaders on the team and told them, we need you to have Trey Lance's back if we're going to do this Jimmy G thing. Is that an odd or unusual move for an organization to do when making a decision like the one they made?
It's certainly interesting, but it makes sense, because any time that there is a change in direction at the quarterback position, and especially when you're going to go younger, and you've got a veteran there who has played with a lot of the older guys on the team and has won some games and has played reasonably well, you have to make sure that the dynamic inside the locker room is not going to start to splinter. So when you've got everybody on the same page, or you trust that the leaders are going to keep everybody on the same page, then it's going to give you a lot more confidence in order to make a move that they knew was going to, ruffle some feathers, at least from the media aspect of it. Because when you have a situation like Sunday, when the offense doesn't perform well and you lose the game that you probably shouldn't have lost, the media attention is going to get a whole lot more difficult. And you got to make sure, again, you don't start to have guys leaking information or doing something that's going to disrupt the potential of the team long term.
Jeff Howe is with us here on this Tuesday. Jerry Jones, Jeff, said earlier today that Dak Prescott is not going on the IR. Your thoughts on that decision? And I would say, obviously, that Cooper Rush is going to be the guy in the meantime, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it seems like. And it's the offense with Dak didn't look good as it was. So going to his backup, maybe Tampa's defense is a whole lot better. We know what Tampa's defense is capable of. I don't think there was a ton of hype on that unit, but maybe they are better than people were kind of giving them credit for going into the season, and that was the root of some of those offensive issues. But it's not going to get any better without Dak Prescott on the field. It was surprising to see that they are leaving the door open for him to start, let's say, maybe 4 weeks from now after having that hand surgery. Certainly, especially in the aftermath of the game, when it sounded like it could be looking at 2 months. So clearly the Cowboys got better news than they anticipated getting after the surgery, and that kind of keeps that window open.
I'll tie the last two subjects together to wrap this thing up. As soon as Dak Prescott went down, there were people going, can we interest you in a Jimmy Garoppolo? Do you think the Cowboys or anybody around the league is going to be calling seriously about trading for Jimmy Garoppolo if their quarterback situation changes on a dime the way that we saw the Cowboys?
I mean, it was my first thought, too. You've got to think about that. I mean, if you don't – Cooper Rush is an unknown. And, of course, there's going to be an element of the unknown in bringing in somebody like Garoppolo if something like that were to happen. How is he going to mesh with the coaching staff? Is he going to be able to pick up the offense as quickly as he needs to? But this Cowboys roster is talented, and it's certainly talented enough to be in the playoffs. Maybe it's talented enough to contend for an NFC championship. I don't know. But if Cooper Rush is not the answer and there's a drastic drop-off in quarterback play, you owe it to yourself and everybody, the other 52 guys on that active roster to – it's very similar to the topic that we've had, with Trey Lance and keeping Garoppolo. Like, you've got a Super Bowl caliber roster. You don't want to all of a sudden lose control of the season because your starting quarterback is down for at least a month. So it's a much more tradable contract now than it was before the restructure. I don't know what it would take the 49ers to give him up. But if you're the Cowboys, I think you should at least owe it to yourself to make the call to figure out what the price tag is.
Jeff, as always, we appreciate the time, man, and thanks for being so accommodating today. We'll get back to the regular time next week. We appreciate you.
It was very, very difficult to reorganize my schedule. But anything for you guys.
All right, Jeff. Thanks, buddy. There goes Jeff Howe, the Athletic, great as always. And he said, yeah, that was his first inclination too. Like, hey, how about you give the Niners a call? But apparently Jerry's going to take the swing here and say, hey, we hope he can get back in 4 or 5 weeks, and hopefully Cooper Rush can hold the fort.
But that could change.
Yes.
If Rush doesn't look good and they get bad news, bad returns on Prescott's recovery, and it doesn't look like he could be back in 4 weeks, that could change.
Could absolutely change. The NBA dropped the ball. We'll talk about it next.
It's Cattles. It's Ramie. Sactown Sports 1140.
Sacramento weather is brought to you by our
Just two guys rubbing elbows, talking sports, and lots of other stuff.
They always keep you on edge.
That's really crazy interesting.
It's Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports 1140.
It is time to see the return of Pro Rodeo to Marysville next Saturday and Sunday. That's coming up this weekend, September 17th and 18th. For ticket info, go to MarysvilleStampede.com. All right, Ramie, before we bounce for A's baseball in just about 10 minutes, Robert Sarver, the owner of the Suns and the Mercury, was, of course, being investigated by the NBA. There was this story that came out, I don't know how long ago. Was it almost like a year ago at this point?
Yeah.
About a year ago. I think Baxter Holmes was the guy who first kind of broke this story for ESPN. And it was about Sarver allegedly acting a fool and a bunch of other stuff. NBA investigated. And we have now found out what the results of that investigation were. We'll get into that in a minute. But first, I will tell you that Sarver has been suspended for 1 year. 1 year suspension, $10 million fine. Here's ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski.
Well, Malika, the $10 million is the maximum the league could fine Robert Sarver. But more importantly was the length of suspension and whether it would be more than a suspension, whether they would suspend him, ban him for life as they did with Donald Sterling, and then and then at that point move to try to get a 3/4 vote of the league's owners to force him to sell. And the league didn't go that far. A 1 year suspension, but he can be back running this team certainly at the end of that. And Malika, there are many people around the league today who feel like Robert Sarver is very fortunate that he only has a 1 year suspension, that he has not lost control of this team, and this is not headed for a vote among his peers to force him out.
I should also mention that there's a training program that was included in this punishment. You got to do training.
That'll fix it.
Yes, that'll get it all settled. Some key findings here from Shams Charania. Sarver said the N-word at least 5 times when recounting statements of others. He made sex-related inappropriate comments about the physical appearance of women, inappropriate physical conduct toward men, and he engaged in harsh treatment, yelling and cursing at employees. 1 year suspension, $10 million fine. As Woj said, that's the heaviest fine that they could have given to Sarver. But Ramie, your thoughts on this punishment?
I mean, he doesn't have the track record or the history, because when you talk about what went on with Donald Sterling and the Clippers, you had decades and decades of stories that piled up about this guy and who and what he really was. You don't have that. You don't have the laundry list.
And you had a tape, which for me, it doesn't make a difference. But for some people,
for a lot of people, it does.
Look back at Ray Rice and some of this other stuff.
But I don't see how you oust Donald Sterling and make him sell the Clippers. But then this is all that happens to Sarver. It doesn't add up to me. And I've said this before when talking about the NFL and when they tried to hand down punishment this offseason to Deshaun Watson. It's real hard to set a standard when you're not holding the people at the very top accountable to the degree to which you need to hold them accountable. It all trickles down from there, because they're supposed to set the tone. They're supposed to set the culture. And if you work for the Phoenix Suns in any capacity, how do you come back to the office thinking that this organization or this league is looking out for you and is going to protect you and has your best interest in mind in the face of behavior like this? It doesn't make any sense to me now.
Especially if you're a black or female employee. Imagine walking into that building today as a black employee or a female employee. Imagine being a player of the Mercury. This dude owns a WNBA team, and we find out that, he was involved in all sorts of nefarious stuff with women, inappropriate comments and sex-related inappropriate comments about the physical appearance of females. And you've got to go, play for a team that is owned by this guy. This guy's making money off of your backs. If we know, look at the NBA, right? When you are a player for the Suns, if you're Chris Paul, if you're any of these players on the Suns, any of them, first of all, second of all, especially if you're one of the black players on the Suns, you have to look up and think about how this guy's making coin off of you and meanwhile is dropping the N-bomb. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I do wonder, look, we all know, right? With power at times, most of the time, comes brazen behavior. You feel like you're empowered to do whatever you want, say whatever you want, treat anybody
and he
any
took
way
issue
you want.
with the punishment. He took issue.
Oh, of course he did.
Of
course he did.
But that just goes to show what
he's delusional.
That just goes to show what you're talking about, Nick. He's so drunk with the wealth and the power that he's had that he feels like he shouldn't face consequences for these things. He's like, yeah, I did it. He even cooperated with the investigation and was like, yeah, I did these things. Yeah, I said the N-word 5 times. Sure, I bullied some of my employees and made inappropriate comments, but I'm supposed to face consequences for that? Come on.
When you own a professional sports team, it is a privilege, right? It's not a right given to you. It's a privilege. And I believe that the leagues should be more zero tolerance than they are with this kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know how you can allow this guy to own a basketball team with what has come out with this report after this investigation. I do wonder, though, and this is what I think is happening. The NBA, shocker, is thinking with their pockets. And I say that because a lot of people remember that Donald Sterling was gone. He was vanished from the league. Not many people remember he sued the league. He went after the league, and it was a lawsuit, and it went into the court system, and he lost, but then he appealed. And after he appealed, what did the NBA do? The NBA settled for an undisclosed amount of money. They wanted to have it go away. And I think the NBA, learning from what happened with Sterling, if we force this guy out, he's going to drag it through the court system. He's going to inevitably appeal if he loses. We're going to have to spend money, and this story is going to be over our heads for the next X amount of years. I think they were shook by that lawsuit from Sterling, and I think the owner said, we don't want discovery. We don't want any dirty secrets aired. Let's just, let's suspend this guy for a year and fine him. And I think he got off light, and I'm not surprised at all that a rich owner is upset because he got in trouble. Look at Daniel Snyder. Daniel Snyder was all upset, and they didn't even technically suspend the guy. His wife is running the organization. That's what these guys do. They've made a lot of money. They are entitled, and they feel like they can do whatever they want. And as soon as you push back on them, man, oh man, do they get very upset.
If some of these players for the Mercury or the Suns feel the way that you and I think they might feel, Nick, them speaking up or some form of protest by those players who are his employees, I think might be the only way that the NBA goes, oh, okay, we have to do something more. Otherwise, I think they just sit back and count on our short attention span and quick news cycle.
I would love for the players. I would love for every member of the Mercury and Sun get together and say, nope, not on our watch. I would protest it. We're not going to play another basketball game. Neither team. We're not going to play another game for this owner if he is still the owner of this team. I don't care if he's suspended for a year. He'll be back in 365 days. He's still going to make money. It's still going into his bank account. I am not hitting that basketball floor for one more single solitary second until his tuchus is out. He's got to go.
And I think that'd be the only way that the league acts any further. Otherwise, they hope this just goes away.
Create a PR disaster. That's how you go after leagues. That's how you go after power. Create a public relations nightmare. Attack them. Protest. Fight. Don't give in. Don't allow this guy to take a 1-year sabbatical and hang out in Europe and go on vacation because that's all he's going to do, and then parachute right back into what he's been doing as the owner in 365 days.
I think the NBA has a little bit more of a conscience than the NFL because the NFL's entire disciplinary system is designed to appease the masses and to minimize any public relations blowback that they might get. The NBA, I think, has a little bit more conscience than that and actually do try to do the right thing sometimes, but they also have a little bit of that in them that if it gets If it seems ugly enough to the public, well, then they'll do something about it. That's any corporation. If it seems ugly enough to the public and they need to clean it up, then they'll go ahead and clean it up.
I would hope so. And this is just another example of, when you look at owners sticking up for owners, and it's not because they feel bad for the people, the fellow owner. It's not because it's because of self-preservation, because they're concerned about what happens if something comes out about me. Am I going to have to sell my team? I don't want to sell my team. I don't want to have to give up. And all of them know. Like, if you're an owner and you have some skeletons in the closet, if you're the next one on the chopping block, you have to set a precedent. And again, you would think it was Donald Sterling set that precedent, but I think the appeal and the lawsuit and all that stuff, I do think that shook NBA owners, and they want to kind of lay back. And also other people will say, hey, look, the government can get involved. You can talk about labor laws, and you can get into all of that. That might be another function of this. But for the NBA, as Woj said, the NBA did have the power to come in and say he's got to go. And they decided not to do that. They decided that a 1-year suspension was good enough. And to think about how brazen this was. Like, according to the report, Sarver used the N-word during like a player recruitment. Like, he felt so brazen. He actually said the N-word in front of somebody he was trying to recruit. Like, that's how ignorant or brazen or whatever you want to call it. And what was going on there?
They do specify that he was using it to recount or repeat what others have said, that it wasn't said with racial bias.
With malice almost, right?
Note to everybody, you just can't use that word. You can't.
Just don't use the word.
No matter how you're using it, you just don't. You can't. It's not. You just don't. All right. There's no situation that makes it all right.
Yeah, and they try, and I thought I don't want to say justify, but I do think they put that in there specifically to try to make it sound as if like, oh, he's not that racist.
Oh, we didn't have to punish him that hard. He's not that racist, guys.
Yeah, he might be kind of sort of racist, but he's not totally racist. I mean, it's not like he was, creating this stuff all on his own. He was repeating what others said. Don't say it. And the same goes for females. The same goes for, a lot of other people that we could talk about on the show. You just, why go there? There's no reason to go there. And now the NBA, I think, looks terrible. And so they made a decision that I think you're right, Ramie, to get through the next few months, even few weeks. NBA season will start. I don't think it's a coincidence that this comes out right before camp, and then you got the season, and you can say, oh, yeah, remember that? Well, now we're focused on the actual play on the court, and we can highlight and spotlight our players and move on from this.
And I think it's a PR play in the modern media age that we're in, Nick, that you just kind of hope for short attention spans and quick news cycles, and for somebody else in the sports world to do something terrible here coming up soon and take some of the heat off you and the whole Robert Sarver situation.
The other part of this is I think owners, no matter what sport you're talking about, but especially the NFL and the NBA, they feel like it's not going to hurt their bottom line. Like, no matter what, people are going to go. They're going to watch the team. They're going to watch the product. They love the guys on the team. They love the women on the team. They root for the laundry. They've got season tickets. They're going to do it. They're going to go. They're going to watch. They're going to be involved and invested. So I hope the players stand up and say, we're not having this. Thanks to Chris. Thanks to JJ. Great job as always. Ramie, we'll do this again tomorrow.
Yes,
another Power Hour show tomorrow on a Wednesday.
Packed a lot in this hour. It's fun.
We did pack a lot. We did. Till tomorrow, everybody enjoy yourself. Cattles and Ramie, Sactown Sports.
What? Reconsider, read some litter. Sure on the subject. You sure?